welcome everyone to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are podcasts. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. We welcome your email questions and comments, dj@ArtistFirst.com. Now, out to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
And I think my voice is a little gone today. Why should tonight be different from any other night? I really do have a face for radio, don't I?
You really want me to comment?
I have a terrible voice, but luckily we have Margaret. So
do stop that.
Well, everyone loves you, and everyone thinks I'm just a comic relief. Anyway,
no, stop that. Do stop that.
Well, tonight, we're this is I think a couple of episodes ago I said we don't do part 3 episodes. So of course, the exception proves the rule. So this is a part 3 episode. I'll tell you why. There's a tiny little backstory here. Margaret messaged me earlier today because I had asked her what topics we might talk about this evening, because that's how we figure these things out. We absolutely, as far as you know, do not figure them out 10 minutes before we start. It's more like 15. And so she just suggested that we do a topic, which we decided to do, on defining God. And we had we'll have our own take on it. But I said it sounds very familiar. So I went back into the archives, which you guys should all do regularly. And I realized that this is the third time. This will be the third time that we've defined God, or we've attempted to. So this is going to be the reprise.
God is a very, very broad subject.
Very, very broad subject. And in the course of looking for what we would put up as a quote, of course we ran into Eckhart. And this is an interesting quote, but I think the other one that you came up with is in some ways better, his actual definition of God. So let's lead with that. That's from The New Earth, right?
It is a book that is an addendum to The New Earth. It's a guide. The New Earth is something he had wrote many years ago.
So, people have asked him as a spiritual teacher, most famously perhaps Oprah, but others, I'm sure, what's your definition of God? And he answered very simply.
Yes, God is the power of life itself.
And I like that in one regard, but I think it's easy for people to conflate that with sort of, quote unquote, the ubiquitous Mother Nature, or just like the energy of the universe, or the cosmic all. And I think that in and of itself is too easy. And by that I mean that we should not be able to define God. We should not be able to put a box around God and so easily and conveniently say these words, the cosmic energy, because it's too pat and it's too mental a concept. And I would postulate that Eckhart was giving this particular definition based on who he was speaking to at the time.
Well, if we go to the quote we have chosen.
Yes, let's do that.
Yes. Eckhart Tolle had said, "The word God has become empty of meaning through thousands of years of misuse." If you think about that just for a moment, you realize that people have been trying to grasp at the meaning of God for thousands of years. And they have come up with what they consider brilliant ideas of what God is. And accordingly, if you understand that definition that Eckhart was talking about, that God is the power of life itself, you've only got a facet of the trueness of what the definition that we're attempting to do of God actually is. It's kind of like if you look at the way people, when you meet them, they say, oh, I am this is my name, such and such and such. So you know their name. But does it mean you know them? Do you know their nature? But a lot of people make that assumption. Oh, I know your name. Oh, well, you're this or that. They've already classified you, which I find fascinating. Because what it means to me is that they just really aren't interested in you particularly. They're more interested in how to handle you.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And I think the idea to define God is in a way a good. It's a way to put a handle on God. If you can define. I think part of it is, Margaret, if you can define God, you kind of own God. You can say, if you're defining something, you're saying this is the true meaning. This is if you want to make it contextual, you say this is my definition of God. But if we want to talk about God, we have to use, a definition of God. And in some ways, stuffing a infinity into something which is obviously smaller than, or at least unable to contain an infinity.
You mean your mind?
Well, your mind, yes, because what is a definition but a concept?
Exactly.
And in many ways, it's a construct. And as you said, why do others assume that they know you when all they really know about you is the slightest fleeting thing? And they assume that they know you because it's easier, because it gives them a handle. And the quickest way to frighten people is to do something they didn't expect you to do. Because once people feel like they know you, they are a little more comfortable with you. They feel, well, this one is going to do this and going to do that. And these are the kind of the boundaries of who they are and what I can say and what I can't and what will be accepted, what will not, and what group they belong in and whether they're with me or against me, and all these things. So once you start to define God, you're trying to first put the definition and then fit it into all your comfy little nooks and crannies, of where God fits.
Mm-hmm. Do you, when you look at this, you realize that your idea of God or your concept of God has a lot of influences on you. So where did your particular concept come from? Most people say, oh, well, it's a religious thing. And you sit there and you go, well, religion is one category and different ways to approach God according to whatever your religion is. But there are those that want to say, well, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. So I want to interact with God on that spiritual level. And you sit there and you realize that, well, what they were seeing that made them bananas was that people were going through the motion of whatever their religion or their culture had required of them in order to come to God. So they say, okay, I want to be spiritual. But their approach to spiritual is fascinating because you're looking at them going, well, what does that mean? And inevitably, it is another description of a process that they do by rote. I am going to sit in meditation every morning for 20 minutes. I am going to contemplate the magnificence of the earth and talk to Pachamama this morning. I am going to look at the sun and go through my yoga forms of greeting the sun. I am going to... And all they're doing is they're talking about the way they're attempting to interact with the concept of the power of life.
Or what they call God.
Well, this is what we are seeing. And it's fascinating because then that's when you enter that arena of people telling you, well, this is wrong and this is right. And doesn't that strike anyone as you guys are all doing the same thing? What you are detesting in a religion, you are reinventing in your own way, but that reinvention is following the same procedures. What does that have to do with the power of life? It means that you are, it's again going back to, I know the name, so I know who you are.
Yeah, I mean, this is a human certainly thing to try to define and mentally, emotionally perhaps, certainly mentally, well, even you just said it. We're trying to relate, we're trying to grasp, we're trying to have a relationship with. And all those things are handles, are ways that we become comfortable with another. So if you're trying to relate to another person, you try to find, well, let's say your common, interests. If you're trying to have a relationship with someone, you're trying to extend yourself and to find something of yourself in the other, and let the other find something of themselves in you, and have an exchange. But it's all, in essence, a way of a ritualistic human way of interacting to become comfortable with the other. And so what do? We in general personify God. However we personify God, we give God the aspect of a being. We also try to relate to God as though the infinite energy of all would have a opinion about what we're doing. This whole, as you mentioned, this kind of human war about how to relate to God, whether it's this way or that way. This, I'm spiritual but not religious. I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other thing. These are all, in essence, definitions and attempts for relationship. So it's a very human thing, this idea that we're going to find a way that we're comfortable with in relating to God, and use it, as you said, in many ways, to differentiate ourselves from each other. oh, they're this, and I'm that, and this is much better than that, and I like this, and I don't like that. Well, that's all ego, and it's all mental, and it's all spin, and it has very little to do with God, and a lot more to do with you, and how you differentiate yourself from the other. And so therefore in Tolle's, as you take it into his concept, it's all, the unconscious, egoic, just another way of saying, well, I'm a this and you're a that, so you're the other, and I am inherently better and have a much better relationship with God, and I know who God is, and God's on my side. All these things are all very egoic things. They're human, very, very desperately human.
Well, I'm going to go back to this concept that most people want to have God fit nicely in what they believe God is, or they think God is. So I do remember conversations with people basically telling me, well, I don't think of God as a person. I feel it's a concept, it's an energy of the universe, that they basically were poo-pooing this idea that the concept of God as a person is very young, almost a mythology.
Of course,
that's a story that someone told you. That's what God is. But God is, it's not even a he. It's an it, and it is so vast and unrelatable. And I sit there and I say to myself, so you want to have an unrelatable God? What does that actually say about you?
This is the exact point. What does it say about you?
And I feel a deep compassion for them, because what it says to me is that they haven't accepted themselves as a human. They want to think of themselves as transhuman, or outside, I'm not a typical human. Like, you are unique. Every human being is unique. Why do you want to separate yourself from the power of life that is within you? Because the power of life within you is the power of life that is within another. And it's the power of life that is in everything around you. But the fact that you want to make it non-personal, it's very telling, whether you realize it or not.
Well, and to amplify that, the non-person of God, the non-personification of God, is to put what your concept of God is outside of any human context. It's to say that I'm not God. I'm not of God. I have nothing of God within me. That God is some unrelatable, it's the energy which has no. It's random. It becomes not a relatable thing, but a completely random, foreign, almost something which is which is separate from us a priori. By their definition, nothing of what is human is in any way relatable to God. So they've done that. They've done this. We're nothing more than worms crawling in our particular brand of mud, and God is just, something we can never relate to. And what you're saying is exactly correct. That what you need to accept is that the undefinable nature of God is one with your own nature.
Yes. Yes. That's a very large leap for people to enter into. Because there's an immediate judgment of either, oh, well, you're thinking way too much of yourself, or you're not worthy of any of it. Okay, so you get both ends of the spectrum on that one.
But it's what you said. When I meet someone, I think I know them. But in fact, the undefinable nature of me should tell me. Here's an interesting way to think about it. No one knows me. No one can know me entirely. I am an enigma, a mystery. I have within me an undefinable thing. And that undefinable thing is your consciousness. You cannot find it within me. And no one of us can know another's consciousness at the same level. So not only are we not unrelatable to God, we have an infinite affinity with God because we contain the mystery. Of what? Of what? We have no way of relating ourselves entirely to another, nor do we have any way of relating to another entirely. Knowing someone entirely is impossible as knowing God entirely. I can't define you. I've known you for many decades, and I would never say I knew everything about you. I know a lot about you, more perhaps than I know about anyone else in the world. But were I to say that I know everything about you, then I could make another you, because I know everything about you. And all of us, and our uniqueness is a reflection of the mystery. The fact that we are unique. People don't understand what unique means. Maybe we should define that word.
Okay.
Because what does unique mean? Unique means unlike any other thing.
Or being.
Any other thing or being. Unlike. Unknowable. An incredible mystery. Very dangerous. Everyone you meet is incredibly dangerous. They're unknowable mysteries. Oh my God.
Well, I would rather turn that back to oneself.
Yes.
What that means to me is that people are afraid of knowing the depth of who they are. And they are continually running from themselves and immersing themselves in the things and forms of this world to get away from the depth of who they are.
What are they really immersing themselves in? The definable.
Well, yes, this is safe as far as they're concerned. Oh, this is safe because I've got a handle on it. I can categorize it and make all these rows and check boxes and all sorts of things. I can do research.
I can look it up.
Yes. And you sit there and you go, why are you running so hard from you?
Or why are you afraid of accepting that you are an unknowable thing?
I'm not sure why. I think the immensity of who the people actually are scares them. And it's sort of easier to blame God then. Oh, well, it's God's fault.
It is God's fault. That's a great point. We need to take a huge turn on the show and just start blaming God for everything. It is, because it is God's fault. It is the energy of life itself, that life itself is undefinable. It is the fault of life in consciousness, to be undefinable, and yet be aware of itself and accept itself as a mystery.
Yes. But I want to go back to, if you look at the different cultures and traditions of what God is, I found that fascinating because, we always say, I'm taking comparative religions. It's like, did you learn anything from it? But you look at the many thousands of gods that are represented in Hinduism.
Yes.
And then in Japan, Shinto.
Shinto, yeah.
You have many, many, many gods there because they are emanations of the life force.
Native American spirits.
Well, that's one aspect of it, but they have a different way of looking at it because, and I don't want to go into the depth of that, but they do have great spirit.
Great spirit, yes, that's true.
Okay, and everything comes to great spirit, but they interact with all the different life energies that are around them, whether you want to call them totems or they're reading the flows of what is happening around them. But great spirit is very sacred. Sacred.
And in all things.
And in all things. And to understand that the sacredness that the Native American mindset has for the value of life all around them is phenomenal. Phenomenal. The depth of that can be so amazing. In Buddhism or any of those 5 different branches of Buddhism, they're not worshiping Buddha, okay? Buddha's not a god, but it is referencing back to spirit, but how to say this? Consciousness, the expansion of consciousness to the point where you can embrace a more divine aspect
of you.
You're connected to it, okay, but it's not you defined,
right?
Okay, it goes past the concept,
right? They take the individual and relate it back to the spirit.
Yes,
and actually, the God within is the God of all, and it's your relationship inward becomes outward, becomes the expansive, becomes the all consciousness, if you will.
Yes.
Well, you had all five Buddhisms, and each one has a different path into that. So
the 5 Buddhisms have to do with the manner in which you approach. And for the ones that are really mental, they have many, many exercises to stop the mental voice in your head.
Right. And that's, what, we should probably go back to the studio in a moment, and we will. But there is, what is the mental aspect of human beings? We'll come back on the other side and talk about a little bit of this, but what is the mental doing all the time? The mental is trying to define things. And that's its purpose, and in some ways it's the barrier. But let's go back to the studio while we're still on the topic of God, and we will listen to a few commercials and come back on the other side.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is book 1 of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time. Moonstones and Murder. Real murderers need a heart of stone. Meet Maggie and Mike Heartstone, parents of twin boys, entrepreneurs, and now empty nesters. Mike is retired, not by choice, from his position as chief of police in the picturesque resort town of Hamilton. And now his wife Maggie and her shop, the Cozy Crystal, are their only source of income. When a mysterious killing interrupts Hamilton's famous Springfield Park rock show, the townsfolk, the Cozy Crystal, and their lives are rocked to the core. Can Mike and Maggie figure out who is behind the murderous deeds before the town comes crashing down around them? A touch of romance, a little mayhem, and a whole lot of suspense, along with plenty of comedy and thrills galore. Get your crystal magnifying glass out. It's time for some Moonstones and Murder. Available on Amazon, Apple, Kobo, and other fine e-tailers in ebook and paperback. Out soon on Audible. Get your copy today.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Brag Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
Hello, this is Highway 59 recording artist Randy Moore, and you are listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network.
Thanks for joining us on The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lynes.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And tonight we are taking on a very tiny and easily definable topic, God. I think we've got a handle on it now, Margaret. We've got it all. We've packed it all up. fact, the first half hour we defined God, and you guys will have to go back and listen to it because we're not going to do anything for the next half hour. In fact, the last thing we were talking about really was that the mystery, as human beings, and with all the various religions, we were talking about many different religions that are out there, and there are many more than we even could possibly imagine or talk about. But in all of them, we find the essence of some sort of a mystery. When you get down to the nub of the way human beings relate to what they're calling God, what their definition of God is, it always, at some point, becomes an undefinable thing. Because if you go deep enough, or put enough layers on it, but yet get underneath some of those layers and get into what your religion is telling you about your relationship with with what it's calling God, there's always a mystery. There's always an undefinability. And in fact, that is the central, the central quality, the central sort of property of God. Not defined, but just the central is that it's undefinable. that God is a mystery. And yet there's a simpatico, there's a resonance with us, within us, with this thing which is undefinable. And the resonance, and we said this last half hour, the resonance is immediately apparent and almost immediately ignored. The immediate apparent resonance with God is that you are undefinable. That even the mental aspect of you has no idea what or who you really are. There's no amount of mental aspect of you, your little ego self, that can encompass your actual consciousness, nor understand where it is, what it is, or entirely define it. You yourself can't define you, the old. You don't even know who you are. It's funny, but it's true. None of us know who we are, but yet we know that that's an aspect of what we call God. That's our affinity to God, the amazing mystery of who we are, each individually.
The word know, K-N-O-W, is the issue. Because when you say, I know God, or I don't know God, you're speaking from that mental viewpoint.
Yes.
And you have to acknowledge that the knowing that we are speaking of is as in relationship with another person. I know them. And you know them because you've had interactions and you've lived life with them. You are sharing life with them. That level of knowing, and not the mental knowing alone. Because you can know another through the aspects that rise up in relationship, the emotions that rise up in relationship, the perspective that another consciousness may hold in a moment according to what is unfolding in front of you. And life is going to present you with many different scenarios. Life unfolds before you, and you are there to experience that unfolding. It doesn't mean that you do a quick mental analysis of exactly what is going on, the temperature of the room, the how many people were there, et cetera, what day it was, time, year, whatever,
right.
season. Your experience is more than that. The interaction of the life force is key. When you are sharing in that flow of life and experiencing and feeling not just the emotions or the mental aspects that you're trying to work something out, you're trying to share, but the intention, the clarity of the moment, whether or not you or the other were in a moment of clarity, or were they lost from the now in a moment of the past or projecting into the future. All that are aspects of participating in the unfolding of the moment. And the word know is flung about very easily. I know this, I know that, and I am going to repeat what I have said many times before. The minute you know something, you stop learning. You become unteachable. And that shuts you down from the moment in front of you, that moment of now. And it is only through this moment of now are you capable of being able to allow your heart to truly express what is going on. Because your mind will tell you many stories. Because it has a format that it's predisposed to. It wants it a certain way. If it happens outside of that, then for that mental aspect, it means it doesn't exist. And to be aware that what your mental mind does not understand or expect doesn't exist means that there's a whole realm that it's missing.
That's willfully ignored. That's not known by the mental mind. I think you hit upon it exactly a few minutes back when you said the word "no" is the problem. No is another one of those words, which is unfortunate because it's used far too often and for far too many things. And it comes from the Greek gnosis, and it really is a mental word. It is all about knowledge,
as it was supposed to be.
Right, but we are fundamentally unknowable, and it's interesting, Margaret, because the physical universe is vast and in many ways unable to be known. Yet, I can imagine that there is a certain point where science will have we're working our way to it every day. Well, science will have figured out some extremely precise way to talk about the physical universe. But it won't matter because that definition of the physical universe, even if we had the ultimate grand unification of unifications of everything, we knew it all from the very beginning. We had it all down, and you could write it in a book, and here it is, all the equations of the universe. We still wouldn't know, because it is unknowable, what God was. Because, nor would we know, we would have no way of writing down in that equation where God was or where God is. And nor would we know what we were. Still, the consciousness exceeds the physical universe. Even where the consciousness, where the mental aspect to have everything within universe, completely and totally written down in an equation. Everything comes down to this. Here it is. 10 lines of mathematical symbols. You understand them, you understand everything. Consciousness would be still outside of that. Consciousness is by very definition containing the mental, containing the mystery, containing the fact that knowing all this about the universe, you haven't gotten down to consciousness yet, because the awareness of it is external. And that's our resonance with God, the fact that we just cannot be known. We can't, this silly word know doesn't apply. We said it, we wrote it down here. Our quest for the definition itself is meaningless. Or pointless, perhaps, is better. We don't have, the fact that we wish to know is in itself wrong at some fundamental level.
It's again, we go back to what your definition of know is, because there are still many people who do want to know past this construct, past this mental construct, okay? The quest for the definition is the question.
Right. I'm talking about the whole statement here, but I understand what you mean. And again, it comes down to semantics and to the fact of what do we mean by knowing? But I think in the conventional definition of the word, it's impossible and meaningless and fruitless to try and know, define, put it in a box, write the equation down. Here it is. Here's consciousness. I just wrote it on the paper. Can't find it. Can't do it. And almost the only real thing here is, rather than defining God, we should be saying accepting God, accepting the mystery, understanding that it's never going to be something the mental can play with.
Well, think about the way that the physics community approaches all this. They were forever looking for the God particle.
Yeah.
Okay, they wanted to break it all the way down to an elementary particle. And they just nicknamed it, God. All right, and you sit there and you go, okay, so this is your approach to understanding what God is. And if you put in Tolle's definition of the power of life itself, you honestly feel that a particle is going to give you the power of life itself.
Are they, though? I think that this is some, in the mental construct that we're talking about, the physicists have said, well, there's no God, let's just move on. And I don't think they're actually, I think you're right, it was nicknamed the God particle by some newspaper somewhere. Because I think the idea of accepting the unknowable mystery bothers them.
They do not wish to accept any of it. They want a proof. And I can understand the process, the logical process, yes. But you're more than just the logic, much more than just the logic.
Exactly. But this discipline, this religion called physics, this discipline, it starts out by saying there is no other thing except what we can prove or we can test or we can theorize about and test. And so it starts right there. So it starts right at the very beginning and saying, okay, this is the physical universe. I've drawn this boundary, and outside that nothing exists. So they've begged the question. They don't want to even, they're just putting their fingers in their ears and going, no, there's no God. We're looking at things here. We understand this is everything, all of this here in these three equations. We've got it all down.
Right. And what, the one thing I do appreciate is the true scientists will admit when physical proof comes in that they were wrong.
Yes.
So now we've got the James Webb Telescope out there, and it's disproving many things in that realm.
But I think no matter how big a telescope is ever built, we're not going to resolve the mystery.
You're not, I agree, okay? It's not going to be a simple thing of God is defined by X, Y, Z.
Mm-hmm.
You know, plus a few other symbols and imaginary numbers and whatever else you want to call it.
Yes.
But my point being that the environment that you've entered into, growing up, bringing into this world, usually is your first introduction of this concept of something greater than yourself, called God. And again, the power of life. I think modern society is further away from embracing this concept simply because death is not as immediate as it once was. Death for the populace is like, oh, well, that's like a random thing, or oh, that person was old, or they were sick. But earlier, when we didn't have the science to battle a lot of the illnesses that were here, death was much more common. Giving birth to a child was also quite dangerous. Death was more real. It was more apparent. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. And when it's in front of your face, it brings it to your consciousness. And people begin to contemplate, well, what is death?
And what is life?
Yes.
So the mystery is in your face more.
Yes.
Let me rephrase. I think you're saying that in our current culture, we put boxes around death. Oh, it's this, and we've put a handle on death. We got all these handles on death. We got all these handles on life, and we've got it all defined, and we know what this is, and 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 we have put enough, let's say, padding and boxes around the mystery that we're saying, oh, that's just when it's right in front of you, right in front of your face, when the crossing from life to death happens, when you see life leave a person, when consciousness departs, there's a mystery there because there is literally, apparently, no difference between the living incarnate being and the apparently incarnate, the apparently lifeless, but still a body there. What happened? Where did they go? And you say, where will I go? And so yes, it's very much, that's the fundamental question which we have hidden from ourselves and padded away as much as we can.
It was a question that was much more visceral. The body itself is sitting there going, wait a minute. And when it's visceral like that, coming out of your gut, that's when you begin to pay attention, because the body understands, wait a minute, there's an end to this. What does that mean?
I think there's another aspect too, Ma, and the aspect of the mental in trying to see the difference is confronted by the fact that it cannot define it. That's the in your face that is not in our face anymore is what is the difference between the moment of the life being there and not being there. That the moment of life incarnate in birth, of life discorporate in death, bothers the mind a lot is the central mystery. And then it's reflected back of, well, that happened to this person, and if it happens to me, where do I go? What mystery am I that I am here and then not here? And then you go, where did I come from? Where will I go
to?
And these are the things that we very, very, as much as we possibly can, kind of sanitize and put no, things just happen. When it's, as you said, when it's right in your face, when you're really there, when you see the living, the life, as I believe it poetically says, the life goes out of someone's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Poetic, but it's between the breath of life and it's often described as the breath of life. You know, God breathes into the clay and becomes living.
That is why the breath is considered spirit.
Spirit. And yet there it is. And when you put it right there in front of the mind runs shrieking away because it says, I don't know and I can't know what this is. The no fails. The no fails. The visceral heart can know. The heart still has the spirit connection.
Yes, the soul and spirit that functions through your heart knows that life does not end. So the body seems to end.
And that's the dichotomy and the push and pull and where you get the God is what is always there, the energy of life itself. That it comes here, it goes there, the heartbeat of creation.
Which is one of the reasons why the breath itself, the in-breath and the out-breath, is so key, because once the spirit leaves the body, it exhales, and it doesn't inhale again.
And you're confronted with it.
Yes.
And there is no denying the mystery at that point. You can't cover it up. You can be afraid of it. You can mentally deny it, but it's there.
But the thing that allows you to move through this without fear is the understanding that your spirit and soul are eternal. And making that connection through your heart will allow you to continue your life force. And it means that you do have relationship outside the body.
And beyond definition.
Mm-hmm. And I believe we have reached the end.
There is a box around this show. But go right ahead. Finish us out here.
Well, I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael.
And thank you for listening.